Hello everyone, it's Charlton. Please subscribe to my channel, tap the notification bell, like this video. That helps me to keep making videos. I'd appreciate it majorly. So Jeffrey Epstein was arrested today, Saturday, in New York City, Manhattan. And he's due to appear in court on Monday, so he'll sit in prison, jail from now until Monday. The indictment will be unsealed then in court on Monday, but many sources are going over what he allegedly will be, charged for. And it says over the Daily Beast, they have a super long article that covers pretty much every aspect of it, and I'll go through some of it. But everybody's, reporting on it right now in the last, 45 minutes, hour. It's a huge, huge story, and he had been given some kind of a slap on the wrist deal, because of his money. He's a billionaire, former hedge fund manager with political connections, and he has homes in New York City and I think Palm Beach, Florida, where he, was given a deal by the former U.S. attorney, who's now the labor secretary, Alexander Acosta, the current labor secretary under Trump. But he was a former U.S. attorney in Florida, I believe Palm Beach, that gave him this deal where he only served like 13 months, but most of it was like on a work release program. So and people basically felt as though he got off. But that deal that he got, the victims sued because the victims weren't even made aware of the deal, which violates federal law, and they won, to the best of my knowledge, if I just described it properly. So it says just very quickly, and I'm sort of stunned. I mean, the Daily Beast just flat out says billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein was arrested for allegedly sex trafficking dozens of minors in New York and Florida between 2002 and 2005, and will appear in court in New York on Monday, according to 3 law enforcement sources. The arrest by the FBI NYPD Crimes Against Children Task Force comes 12 years after the 66-year-old financier essentially got a slap on the wrist for allegedly molesting dozens of underage girls in Florida. The indictment, which according to two sources will be unsealed Monday in Manhattan federal court, will reportedly allege that Epstein sexually exploited dozens of underage girls in a now familiar scheme, paying them cash for massages and then molesting or sexually abusing them in his Upper East Side mansion or his palatial residence in Palm Beach. Epstein will be charged with 1 count of sex trafficking of minors and 1 count of conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking of minors, which could put him away for a maximum of 45 years. The case is being handled by the Public Corruption Unit of the Southern District of New York with assistance from the district's human trafficking officials and the FBI. Several of the billionaire's employees and associates allegedly recruited the girls for Epstein's abuse, and some victims eventually became recruiters themselves, according to law enforcement. The girls were as young as 14, and Epstein knew they were underage, according to details of the arrest and indictment shared by 2 officials. It then goes on to talk about his previous how his previous deal that he had struck with the former U.S. attorney in Florida and Palm Beach, how that was basically overturned. Epstein's bust comes mere months after a federal judge ruled his 2007 non-prosecution agreement, secretly inked under former U.S. attorney and current labor secretary Alexander Acosta, violated federal law by keeping Epstein's victims in the dark. Under the sweetheart deal, Epstein dodged federal charges that might have sent him to prison for life. He instead pleaded guilty to minor state charges in Palm Beach and served 13 months in a private wing of a county jail, mostly on work release. The alleged victims, who sued the government for violating the Crime Victims' Rights Act, asked the court to rescind Epstein's non-prosecution agreement and called for the feds to hold him criminally liable. The NPA also granted immunity to Epstein's co-conspirators, identified in the documents as, including but not limited to, Sarah Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Groff, Nadia Marcinkova, I don't know who those persons are. But in June, prosecutors for the government advised the judge to uphold the plea deal, saying that voiding it would cause unintended harm to many of the victims and jeopardize monetary settlements that more than a dozen of them received. At some point, it goes on to basically indicate that they did overturn it, I believe. I mean, if today's report is true, it only proves that Epstein should have been charged by federal prosecutors 12 years ago in Florida. With his money, Epstein was able to buy more than a decade of delay in facing justice, but fortunately, he wasn't able to postpone justice forever, said attorney Paul Cassell, who represents multiple victims of Epstein in their lawsuit against the federal government. While New York prosecutors are apparently seeking to hold Epstein accountable, the fight will continue to force federal prosecutors in Florida to do the same thing, Cassell added. While Epstein was at the head of the international sex trafficking organization, that conspiracy could not have functioned without many others playing their part. Jane Doe 1 and 2 will continue to fight for all of Epstein's co-conspirators to be held accountable in New York, Florida, and anywhere else they committed crimes. And I don't know who. There's other YouTubers who have followed the story greatly over the years, and I just have peripherally. I don't know who those other co-conspirators are. And he had, I think, extremely high political connections. I believe, I don't even want to name them, but they're pretty obvious because I'm not super familiar with this. Epstein reportedly supplied valuable intel to federal investigators in exchange for his lenient plea deal. It's been speculated this information may have been related to the Bear Stearns executives' alleged crimes in the lead-up to the 2008 financial crisis. And then it goes on to talk about that a little bit more. So, I mean, it's basically the same thing over at CNN and other places. I mean, the Daily Beast goes on and on. It goes on to name his victims, in greater detail. It's really reported on at length. It'll be linked in the description if you want to read the entire article. It's very long, but it's a humongous story. I can't believe I was shocked to see it. I know I've been seeing some videos popping up recently on YouTube that I haven't even watched. I just I've seen his picture come up. So he has been arrested for alleged sex trafficking crimes, and he's doing court on Monday for his indictment. And that's the story there. All right, well, thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a like down below. I'll see you in the next video. Later, man.